So when you are screening for type 1 diabetes, like we talked about how diabetes is an autoimmune disease. So there has to be something in your body that starts attacking the pancreas.
One factor that really helps us is the discovery of autoantibodies. And these are components of the immune response find off a blood test.
So the antibodies are markers of inflammation, autoimmune inflammation happening in pancreas.
And it turns out we can measure 5 different types of antibodies now.
So typically if your results are negative, this is reassuring. And unless you have a very strong suspicion, you probably don't need to repeat them again.
For an individual who's going to develop diabetes, it's a process that evolves over time. So we often see perhaps a single antibody appear.
And if it's just one type of antibody, you would like to make sure that you repeat the test. And if your confirmatory test is positive again for one antibody, the risk is low. But if somebody has 2 positive antibodies persistently there, then we can say that this person has stage 1 diabetes. In a toddler, disease is typically progressing within 2-3 years to clinical stage. So this is the group whom we want to focus on, and we start monitoring their sugars very closely every 3 to 6 months.
We used to refer to type 1 diabetes as juvenile onset diabetes, and the thought was it just happened in children. But it turns out it can happen at any age, and about 40% of new onset type 1 diabetes occurs in those over age 18.
For individuals who have 2 positive antibodies who are a little bit older, sort of teenagers, young adult, most of them are going to develop type 1 diabetes during their lifetime. At least this should be checked yearly.
So there are 3 stages of diabetes. Stage 1 is when you have 2 or more positive antibodies, normal blood glucose levels, and no symptoms of diabetes.
And you move from stage 1 to stage 2, where the beta cell function starts to shift. Usually you would not know it, but if we do a stimulation test, like an oral glucose tolerance test, we can see some changes in how the blood sugars rise after that test.
We call this dysglycemia. So when a person has 2 positive antibodies and dysglycemia, this is stage 2 diabetes. Again, there are still no symptoms, and this stage could be only recognized if we do tests or monitor blood sugars, for example, with a glucose sensor.
I was screened about 15 years ago after my twin sister was diagnosed with diabetes. So I was kind of one of these really unique people that had 2 antibody markers that they look for and an abnormal but not diagnostic glucose tolerance test. As soon as they got the results and they shared them with me, and they saw that I was likely to develop diabetes within the next year.
If you're in stage 2, you have a 100% lifetime chance of getting type 1 diabetes. And like 75% of people go from stage 2 to stage 3 within 5 years.
And at that stage, you're getting closer to the point of moving into clinical diabetes, what we call stage 3.
And then stage 3 is when you have 2 positive antibodies, you do have hyperglycemia, so high blood sugar is present, and you are symptomatic. So you're feeling thirsty, tired, losing weight, all of those things. I think if anyone has any positive screen, they need to contact endocrinology immediately.
We do actually offer and suggest for everyone who has positive antibodies to get rescreened. Even now, most people are diagnosed at stage 3.
Before I was diagnosed, I was enrolled in the prevention study, and through enrolling in the trials, I was actually able to hold off for about 5 years. So by the time I got there, I didn't have the crisis diagnosis that my sister had. I've never been in DKA, ever. I got this kind of soft introduction to diabetes that has honestly been really nice. It's been like kind of joining a nice community of people who we all unfortunately know too much about needles. And hopefully in the future, as we keep testing and keep screening and keep up with these trials, we can actually stop type 1 diabetes before it starts.